When I'm on my own looking to chill out, I do one of two things. I paint some models and hate myself whilst doing so, or I play computer games and love life. I consider myself something of a gamer, it must be said. How I ended up with a tabletop focused channel is actually just British self-deprecation at its legit finest. However, clearly I do like tabletop gaming as well as computer gaming, and so in this video I want to explore some Warhammer computer games that give you the tabletop feeling on the computer, kind of. Hello everyone, I'm Andy, gamer. I identify as a tabletop, so if you're a table bottom, follow me. Let's look at every Games Workshop tabletop game and figure out which computer game will scratch that itch. We start with the easy ones. Actually, sorry, to extend the intro, but you know, this has to be done. Some of these are really obvious, but some I feel I've taken some liberties with, okay? So let me know for my pick for 40k if I've gotten too weird with it and should have just picked Dawn of War. I didn't pick Dawn of War, or if you think the one I picked makes sense. Because, you know, some people who like 40k might be coming here looking for recommendations, and I'm just spinning a yarn. So correct me or agree with me in the comments. Let's hot drop in. Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl 3. This is pretty much a straight crossing of the rules from the tabletop, and a great way to learn the tabletop game with the computer handling all the rolling and telling you when moves are illegal. Top notch. This is made by a company called Cyanide Studios. They make a lot of turn-based tactics games in general, and they also make a lot of Warhammer IP games, and will be appearing again in this video. Like, literally half of the games they make are Warhammer IP games, but oddly, their Warhammer IP games are not their highest reviewed games, but they are the games that get the most reviews, I guess, sales, maybe, I don't know. It looks like, at least. So go and check out their Steam page. I actually really like Cyanide Studios, the stuff they put out good stuff. Whether it's Warhammer or not, just kind of my thing. Or, you know what, hold on. If you want to pick up any of these games, I have an affiliate link. If you buy through that, it doesn't cost you any more, but it does mean my Games Workshop rep might actually respond to my emails when I try to convince them to give out more Kill Team review copies to other channels. Pretty sure they've blocked me, to be honest, but whatever. Also, this is all sponsored by Games Workshop, by the way, and their Skulls event. I don't really know what that is. They sent me like a content creator gift package, but as it included a get starting box, I have to assume that this is for computer games, not tabletop gamers. But I'm going to wear the swag shirt, sure. I think they're doing a week of sales on all Warhammer IP games, so now is a great time to buy them. Like, yeah, just in fairness, go and buy them now. They gave me some game codes, but I already own all of those games, so I'm just going to give those out to patrons, I guess. Let's keep going. That's the back of the shirt. I can't see it. What does it say? Probably Skulls. Oh, sorry, and another thing that has to be said, and is a rant that I will be cutting very short for you in this video so we can get on with it, but anyone making a Warhammer game absolutely mandatorily 100% must have a color scheme creator, aka an army painter. If your game doesn't have that, you messed up, boy. If I can't even so much as palette swap my armor, what are you doing with your dev time? It's genuinely a must-have. I'm not ranking any of these games, to be clear. I'm not giving them a 1 out of 5 or a 10 star or whatever. I'm just saying they're a good digital facsimile, but any game on here without customization would be an instant put it back in the oven because it ain't cooked. Lol. Lamau, even. Mordheim no longer exists, but it lives on in our hearts and minds, and coincidentally has a really, quite good computer game with Mordheim City of the Damned. It's very different to the tabletop game, but is generally regarded as being kind of like, yeah, good. You get to build a warband, go on a campaign, level up, and if that's all too much hassle, you can just skirmish with low-level warbands over and over, and get the same amount of fun as a campaign, if I'm honest. Necromunda is made by the same studio as the Mordheim game and uses the same general action system of free movement within a certain area, shoot people, loot bodies, but there's a cool single-player campaign story to follow, which is quite nice. I actually enjoy it. However, the AI kind of sucks, and like, it sucks a lot. Yeah, and things are a little bit buggy. I played this when it released, and I wasn't super hyped on Necromunda, and I bounced off it pretty hard. But then a few months ago, I was into Necromunda, and I played this, and actually really enjoyed it. It made me go and buy an Escher Gang, so your interest in the franchise will affect how much you like this. That is definitely something I should have just prefaced the entire video with, actually. If you're hyped on Warhammer, a lot of these games, you can forgive their sins. Warhammer Fantasy is an obvious, no-brainer Total War Warhammer. The latest is number 3, but there's a form of the game where the races from 1 and 2 and 3 can all be played on the same giant overworld campaign map. I'm not a fan of the Total War franchise in general, but Total War Warhammer is pretty great. Even to just run skirmish battles as if you're playing the rank and flank old world game, this is great fun. It's different to anything else out there on the market. Total War knows what it's doing. I will say though, even though I think it's a great game, pick it up in a sale because it does regularly go on sale. I assume it's on sale right now, due to this whole Skulls event thing. So check that out. Warhammer Underworlds has its own game called Warhammer Underworlds, Shadespire Edition. This is no longer supported, as in they're not releasing any new warbands for it, aka it is complete. It was released in a pretty rough state, but it's been 4 years, and it seems like they worked out the kinks because it now has pretty good reviews. As it released, you had to buy every warband, but the Shadespire Edition is a complete game. It's a great way to play a very flashy looking version of Warhammer Underworlds. Honestly, great stuff. Adeptus Titanicus has Adeptus Titanicus Dominus. I played this on launch. The studio closed down. I'm not saying those are related. Whoops. You can't buy this game on Steam anymore. Pass. Space Hulk has Space Hulk Tactics. The main thing Space Hulk Tactics gets right is the character customization. The Army Painter. You can play as a bunch of different chapters who all have their own unique customization, and it's legitimately the best Warhammer character creator out there, assuming it's only Space Marine Terminators you want to customize. You can also play as and customize your Tyranids. Now, this game has mixed reviews, and I don't know why. It's a fun game that gives a great rendition of Space Hulk. Play this game. Kill Team. Right now, the best way to get a Kill Team fix on the computer is, without a doubt in my opinion, Chaos Gate Demon Hunters. What about Mechanicus? That comes later, hold on. This is a really nice looking fun game that is your standard XCOM type game, or turn-based tactics if you don't know what XCOM is. You move on a grid, you get a certain number of action points per Grey Knight. This is honestly just a really good game. You should play this, whether you like Kill Team or not. You can customize the skills and look of your strike team, that's fun. There's an additional layer of ship fighting and a time element, but they aren't the focus. There's DLC that lets you play as a Dreadnought in a few missions, but not enough, and that's an issue. Never mind. I suppose a note of criticism though is that there is no multiplayer option, so it's not like you can play through the story and then play against friends. That's a shame. And the game starts off really hard, but that's how we all like it, am I right? But then you get some of the special Grey Knights, and it just suddenly becomes so much easier. And I found my tactics becoming very stale, because my combos were super strong, so why would I do anything else? Okay, and on to the tent pole, 40k and Age of Sigmar. Let's start with ye olde Age of Sigmar, because it's Realms of Ruin. And if you know anything about Realms of Ruin, then you might think this is an insult or a joke suggestion, but it's honestly not. Realms of Ruin, despite not being generally liked, is a pretty good representation of Age of Sigmar. Again, not a joke or an insult. It's framed as a real-time strategy, but it made some very interesting design decisions, pretty much removing base building and the need to have fast reaction times when commanding units. So yes, it's real-time, but it's very slow-paced, almost like it's turn-based in a sense. The removal of base building was a choice, I suppose, and whoops. Right, if you like a real-time strategy where you can potter about in single player and build up your army and then wipe the map, then the single player campaign is super solid, and I fully recommend Realms of Ruin. Additionally, the army painter in this game is best in class. You don't get the accoutrement of Space Hulk Tactics, but it's honestly really good, it's great. This is a genuine first port of call when creating an Age of Sigmar army if you want to test colour schemes and see how they look, with the only negative being that you're limited to so few factions. But for those few factions, 'tis the best. The negatives. It hasn't sold itself well, okay? Calling it an RTS evokes a lot of ideas that it doesn't really deliver on. Apparently, one of those is multiplayer, which I haven't tried. This is not a game with years of longevity behind its online meta, okay? This is not the next StarCraft. It wasn't trying to be, but it didn't really tell us that during the marketing, why would it? And through its visuals. But you know what? As a way to kill 10 hours enjoying the Age of Sigmar universe, it's great. I say all of that at a sale price. It retails at £50, which is too much for this. And the DLC is all pretty crappy and should be free. This game should not be dead, and it is fixable mechanically. Is it fixable in the eyes of the player base? Probably not. They want something else when they see what they see. But if you're into Sigmar, buy this in a sale for the single player and the army painter. 40k, the big daddy of the tabletop world, how can they possibly port such an epic experience to the digital world? Surely it's impossible. Well, as we all know, they've tried again and again, and although they've made games that far surpass the tabletop, they haven't really successfully ported the tabletop rule set to the computer. Could this be because the rules reset every 3 years, but games take like 5 years to make? Lol. Lamau, even. Now, I'm not saying that this game is the best Warhammer game, remember, and the rules for 40k are kind of clunky and not great for digital gaming, frankly. So this also isn't like Blood Bowl and a codifying of tabletop rules in digital, but as a blend of large-scale turn-based action, Battle Sector is a really solid entry. Turn-based, hex map, but unlike Chaos Gate where you control individuals, you control squads. The single-player campaign is Blood Angels versus Tyranids. It's pretty fun. You get a series of narrative campaign missions, a little bit of force customization going into each battle, and decently good graphics for what it is. If you want a 40k digital analogy, I think it's Battle Sector. And on top of that, 2 weeks ago, the publisher, Slytherin, bought the game engine and license, so we'll be changing what happens going forwards with Battle Sector. I do have to bring up some negatives though. Everything is just a bit pricier here than it should be, which again is fixed in sale times, and again I assume that for the Skulls event it will be in a sale, so perfect time to buy. The various DLCs add lots of stuff. They started out light, and not to get too into it, but scummy. Just like adding units to the Blood Angels and Tyranids, which kind of feels lame, like meh, whatever. But then they got serious and added entire factions. We've got Necrons, Adeptus Sororitas, Orcs, Tau, and Khorne Demons as the latest. Sounds cool, but these aren't single-player campaigns. They're just kind of like a force of models. So you can play them in a skirmish or online against other people, which for some might be enough, but for me, I'm into Battle Sector for the campaign, and so all of the DLC have fallen very short of the mark for me personally. Especially when they are half the price of the base game, which is pretty cringe. But in fairness, that's very on brand with the tabletop game. Too expensive, so that's kind of, yeah, makes sense. And that's every Games Workshop game with its best digital alternative. And now, because I like talking about computer games, but this whole Skulls event only turned up at my door like 3 days ago, and so I haven't been able to put in any real time or effort into this, which sucks, because I really would have liked to. Here's some other Warhammer games you should play. All 3 Dawn of War games. They're very different to each other, and just because you like one doesn't mean you'll like the others. But for gamers of a certain age, moi, this is the series that brought the most number of players into the IP and the tabletop, and it's where the fanfic of Blood Ravens originated. Yes, even the 3rd game is good for a single player campaign. Don't at me. Vermintide 1 and 2 and Darktide are all from the company Fat Shark, and they're 3 great games. Personally, I prefer Vermintide to Darktide, but whatever. It's Left 4 Dead, but with Skaven or Poxwalkers. It's good fun. Inquisitor Martyr and Chaos Bane are the 2 options for the Warhammer players who want that hack and slash ARPG Diablo action. Inquisitor Martyr is much slower and less frenetic than Diablo and plays better at range, which makes it feel a bit odd perhaps, but it does have its fans and it does distinguish itself in some way instead of literally just being a clone. Whilst Chaos Bane was roundly slated, but it's old world Diablo and you can play a Dwarf Slayer, which is pretty cool I guess, so whatever. Stormground is a roguelite take on a tactical strategy game set in the Sigmarverse. I think is very acceptable. Every time you die, because you're Stormcast, you come back to life and start again, right? And you get to reforge your available cards and tactics. It's a fun idea, nothing amazing, but if you're into Sigmar, it looks pretty cool. Gladius is a very light 4x 40k game, light on the civilization building, focuses on combat, it's fine, good if you're into Warhammer and 4x games. Space Marine 1 and presumably the upcoming Space Marine 2 are hack and slash games generally considered great to kill 8 hours spamming X on your Xbox controller. I have no negatives really. I've played through and enjoyed Space Marine. Cool. Necromunda Hired Gun I legitimately enjoyed. It's a fast-paced shooter where you run through a campaign and can redo levels to get better gear. The gunplay felt satisfying enough to keep me playing and complete the whole thing. If you're into Necromunda, this was well worth it. Space Hulk Deathwing looks great, and if you have a few friends who will play it with you, it's very atmospheric and challenging as you mix up your loadouts to run through Space Hulks, fighting Genestealer cults and Tyranids in exceptionally dark cathedrals. Looks great. Mechanicus would have been a great alternative to Chaos Gate for a kill team contender, but honestly, I think Chaos Gate does exceed Mechanicus from a core gameplay perspective. And yes, tastes vary, but biases in reviews and commentaries is a feature, not a bug, so there you go. However, Mechanicus does lean a bit more into a cool kind of timed dungeon run, as it was coming hot off the heels of Darkest Dungeon and very much followed that vibe. Finally, Bolt Gun. I don't like boomer shooters, it turns out. It's a good game though. Right, finally we have Warpforged and Tacticus. Warpforged is our Hearthstone-like game. I actually really like the gameplay of Warpforged. All of the factions have their own feeling, and the different commanders change how your decks play, and the graphics are good, and it's a really nice, slick experience. Monetization, that's why these two are lumped together, feels pretty aggressive, or shall I at least say in your face. Totally possible to play this casually, log on, smash out a few games, and then log off and you'll never have an issue. Kind of. But you are always forced to look at progression systems. Even if you choose to not spend money, you are constantly looking at how much better you could be if you did spend money. It actually feels a bit insulting, and I don't like the developers insulting me every time I play the game, but the game is fun to play, so depending on your appetite for monetization, this game may be brilliant for you. Then we have Tacticus, a mobile-only game that honestly is brilliant for your first, I'd say, 6 hours of gaming before you get to a point where, again, you start to realise that maybe you should spend money, but at least to me, the shoving your face in it seems less obvious in Tacticus than in Warpforged. I felt like I could play a few battles and then log off, and yes, I was gaining coins that I didn't know where to use, but I wasn't really too fussed. They could go into my wallet, and I could ignore them. The gameplay itself is fine. I generally like this sort of game actually, although I don't think Tacticus is the best of its kind. But it has the Warhammer skin, so what can you do, right? And I'm sure because it's a gacha mobile game, it makes a ludicrous amount of money. Oh yeah, right, sorry. That's where Tacticus becomes excessive. If you really want to play your faction in Tacticus, you will be spending money to make that happen. Gacha games, as we all know, are designed to entice you into gaining like 1/2000th of a shard of one of 6 characters for your faction, or you can spend money to buy it now, and like 50 quid. It's not cheap. Whereas Warpforged, although smashing its monetization in your face, still lets you play immediately with all of the decks and commanders holding back cards. Do they hold back the strong cards? If you want to buy any of these games or buy some Warhammer merch, I have affiliate links pinned below. It doesn't cost you anything, and if I sell enough, again, maybe my PR rep will actually get back to me and actually get Kill Team review copies into the hands of the other channels I've suggested. No, really, here's a screenshot. This is the second time I sent this email. Look at the date. Dang, they've ignored me. And that's my super quick rundown of some of the Warhammer games I've played in the last decade. I'd love to know what's your favourite Warhammer computer game. Stay hydrated. Bye bye.